paste the link for the slides as well as the notes. We have a pretty packed agenda. I'm going to turn it over to Justin.
Thanks, Usman. So welcome back, everyone. This is after a 2-week break. Not that we were all taking vacations. We wanted to expend a significant effort to help prepare the launch of the N3C platform and provide access to everyone. So to that end, we'll talk about some of the work that we've been able to complete, and we are going to actually revisit a topic we haven't discussed in a while, which is governance. As you'll see, this is a very important topic as individuals and institutions need to be informed about how to get on the platform and what will be required to access data. So we're going to spend some time today revisiting governance, talk about some of the developments that have been made there, and provide some demos showing how to do some of the onboarding and data use requests forms. So I'm happy to say that we've had the DUA language now finalized by NCATS, and so now we'll be distributing that, and Ken Gersing will have some words along those lines. So why don't we go ahead and get started, and Ken, actually we have a couple updates on key statistics here. So this is our dashboard showing where we are with respect to executed DTAs and deposited data sets. So we currently have 15 data sets shown here with nice distributions across the different common data model groups. And Usman, this is the questionnaire link that you were referring to. Do you want to speak to this?
Yeah, so I think maybe Connor is probably better suited to speak to this. This was a questionnaire link that we had. We're going to be sending out N3C participant questionnaires. So they're like a set of questions regarding the data. Connor, I don't know if you want to just quickly talk to that.
Yeah, it's the cross workstream questionnaire that we're hoping everyone on this call can participate in at your leisure. It was shared, I think, 3 weeks ago, and we're just trying to get some more response rate or higher response rate. So the questionnaire is linked here, and I'll also add the link to the chat as well.
And Connor, who is this questionnaire oriented to, if you can remind us?
It's questions that all of the work streams added or submitted questions for. So it's aimed at users of the enclave.
Specifically the informatics group. So there are questions about future data that we need to collect, as well as some questions about tools and methods that people are using concerning NLP or machine learning, those type of things.
Great, so general purpose questionnaire.
Yes.
Excellent, thank you. Okay, I know for some of you, this might be your first time to the Collaborative Analytics weekly call. So I just want to orient everyone. So we are one of the 5 work streams shown here, and we have a number of subgroups that are described at the bottom here with the different leads listed. And we're going to hear at the end of this call some of the report outs from these different working groups. If you're interested in participating in either a work stream or a subgroup, there's a link at the top here. It says click here. I believe this, Usman, if you can just make sure that the link to the slide deck is available to everyone. Everyone should be able to access this and click on all the links that are presented. Okay, so with that, we're going to hear from Ken about now the completion of the DUA and how to get involved with that. Ken?
Thank you, Justin. So as Justin said, the data use agreement was completed. Right now, NCATS is starting to distribute that. We are, of course, working on a soft launch. And for soft launch, when I say soft launch, basically we're walking through all the processes and making sure that they work and getting some tools ready. They're not really tools as much as cohorts ready for when we open up the doors. So think about collections of different data sets, which I think some of the work streams will talk about. But today I want to talk about the data use agreement and just make sure that for the folks who are new that they were understood how the data use agreement works with the data transfer agreement and getting access to all the data. So this is a new slide. Hopefully it's helpful. From the bottom, from the top down, it says institutions contributing data, and that is the data transfer agreement and the central IRB that Johns Hopkins set up. And so then when the data is submitted, it goes to the data quality and mapping group, the DH&I, and then that data, once it's been cleaned, goes into that middle analytics platform where you see synthetic data tier, HIPAA, and limited, the LDS, a limited data set. But if you went from the bottom up, this is actually getting access to the data. And just to review, the data transfer agreement was purposely separated from the data use agreement because we want to make sure that people, not everybody who gives data you don't have to give data to get data, which makes a lot of sense because there's a lot of people who don't have the ability to give data, but we want to have access to the system. So the data use agreement, the thing that Justin referred to, is really, you're seeing that from the bottom up. So this is, instead of getting the data from the top down, again, it's getting access to the data. So what this is saying is that an institution signs the data use agreement, and now that it's done, and I want to thank everybody, it was an enormous effort from community, NIH, NCATS, to get this done, and everybody working on things that we could do with the limitations of being the steward at the NIH. Once your institution signs the data use agreement, then you as an individual can apply as part of that institution that signed the data use agreement to use the data. So how do you do that? Well, you register it at N3C, and that registration information is then passed to NCATS for when you're applying for access to the data. But before you apply, you need to make sure you have all your ducks in a row, so to speak. So obviously your institution has signed the data use agreement, but also for different types of data, there's different types of training that are required. And for LDS specifically, you also need to be able to upload the determination to use the LDS, which is from your local institution. So once you as an investigator have those three things and you're ready to go, then you'll see there's in the middle of the slide, it says data user access. And so you as a user will then sign on to something called the NCATS Federation, or UNA. And there are many ways to get through this, but on the sunny day case, that would be an in-commons. So we're using your institutional login. You'll put in a data use request, and Miriam's going to show you an update of that in a second. A data use request is really very brief, and basically you're describing what you're doing, and you're attesting to code of conduct, to having read the data use agreement, to having taken human subjects training, to have taken security training. And then once you've done that, it goes to the data access committee. And the data access committee will say, okay, you've applied for whatever level data and we're giving you approval, and then you will get a message that you've been approved. So next slide, please. That's the process, and we'll probably talk about it a little bit more later, but again, to reiterate, Chris, Dylan, and Lily will be sending out data use agreements to the folks who initially signed the DTA, the data transfer agreement. It'll be on the NCATS website with the link from N3C to download it for folks who don't get it. And if you have any issues or problems, please don't hesitate to call us or email us. We're happy to help you. Thank you.
Thanks, Ken. And again, congratulations to the NCATS team and the governance team for completing that that Herculean effort to get that DUA, because that obviously is critical for us to opening up the enclave. So we're going to now hear from Christine Suver, who's actually leading the governance work stream, and she's going to kind of step back and remind us of, similar to Ken's overview of the entire governance framework and some of the additional documents and policy documents that have been generated. So Christine?
Yeah, thank you. Yes, today you are going to hear from few people about governance, so we are going to repeat some of the same things, but I think it's because the process is a little bit complicated. So we, Ken has illustrated it in one way, I'm illustrating it slightly a different way. I wanted to highlight the fact that really the governance structure for N3C is a combination of effort from the community that supports the joint research and publication, who leads the different work stream and the task force, and NCAT, who is really responsible for the N3C enclave. NCAT is also responsible for usage of the data and user access. Can I have the next slide, please? So with NCAT and the N3C community, the governance work stream, we really worked on a number of documents that support both the data ingress and data egress. And here I wanted to list them for you so that you know all of those acronyms, what it means, and link to the document, that have been approved. They are now on our Google folder. Those documents are going to also be posted to the N3C website. So this is more of a preview of those documents on our Google folder. So as Ken was talking about, we have the data transfer agreement that is between the data contributor and NCAT. We had temporarily used a confidential disclosure agreement, or CDA, to allow, if you want, limited pre-access to the data for operational activity, to allow some of those working groups to be able to start harmonizing the data, looking at the data. We are going to deprecate the use of the CDA now that we have a data use agreement. Data use agreement that's governing the data access. The DOA has to be between NCAT and the organization or citizen scientist. The DUR, the DOA that we are going to see is going to be the document that's going to be able to be signed by the data requester, whether they want access to the data for research purposes or operational activity, they are going to be able to use the DUA approach. In addition to the DUA, NCAT developed a user code of conduct that describes the user responsibility when accessing the data. The user code of conduct is a one-page document. So even though we have a lot of documents, we really try to make them really brief and yet very robust, addressing the different aspects of the responsibility for sharing and accessing data that may be sensitive. So the user code of conduct is part of the process that people need to agree to, recognize when they make their request for accessing the data. The DUR is the data use request, and you are going to see an example of that process in a little bit. And we have the DAC, the Data Access Committee, that review the data use request. So all of those acronyms are part, element of the governance that NCAT has finalized with the help of the governance workstream, and is under the NCAT control. In addition, we have a role for the N3C, for the community. Because N3C is a community effort, we wanted to develop some guiding principle and really emphasizing the cultural and behavioral norm of that community, of what does it mean to be engaged in research in this sharing environment and in this collaborative environment. And therefore the N3C governance workstream developed those community guiding principles. We've discussed them back and forth with NCAT as well. As part of the guiding principle, we wanted to create a response team of 2 or 3 people that will be nominated by the community to help resolve conflict, not mishandling of the data, but really resolve conflict such as bullying and the likes. we are also developing the attribution and publication policy to promote open, correct attribution, and making sure that publication that come out of the community work in N3C are appropriately given credit to all of the party involved in the research. So we are practically we have practically completed the community guiding principle. That's a document that is in final review, and we have still a little bit of work to do on clarifying the language on the attribution and publication policy. But once those documents are finalized, then we would have the complete set, the complete library of governance supporting document available. Can I have the next slide, please? So briefly, now that we have all those documents to help you get situated, N3C is a tool that is available for researchers who are part of institution and organization, and also available to citizen scientists. Whether you are a researcher in an institution or a citizen scientist, to be able to access the tool, you need to register. You need to agree to the community guiding principle, and or at least acknowledge, having read the community guiding principle, understand the attribution and publication policy, and then you have really two levels of access. If you are a research scientist, you can request access to all of the data tier. To be able to have access to those tiers, you first need to really ensure that your institution or organization has executed a data use agreement with NCAT. And then once you are verify that there is a DUR in place, then every time as a researcher you want to access the data, you need to submit the project-specific data use request and provide different information in your request describing what the project is about. And if you want access to the limited data set, you are going to need to also provide proof of IRB approval. If you are a citizen scientist, on the other hand, you can still access N3C, but you would have access to the synthetic data only. Since you are not part of an institution, you would then have to sign the DUR yourself. So there will be an individual agreement between the citizen scientist and NCAT, and also submit a project-specific data use request. Can I have the next slide, please? I think I have a.
Did we skip one? Oh.
I think.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yes,
there you go.
Here, sorry. Sorry. So here I try to illustrate what does it mean, what is the data use request. And in the center, you have all of the steps that the researcher needs to take to request access. They need to log into the website, they need to have an account, they need to read all of those governance documents, right? They need to be aware of what is the language in the data use agreement. They need to understand what is the user code of conduct, the community guiding principle, and attribution and publication policy. As Ken was saying, requester need to complete training, and the training that NCAT has requested is IT training and human subject protection training. So verify or attest that that training has been completed, and you would be asked for to indicate the date of when you completed that training. You need to describe the project, why you are requesting access to that data, and with that description, there is also a justification for what is the tier of data that you want to access, and why you need access to that particular tier. You need to list all your collaborators, and if you need to if you ask to access the limited data set, you will need to have IRB approval, or submit proof of IRB approval, and then sign and submit your request. Your collaborator, the collaborator that you have listed, can then go onto the website. They can, log in. They also need to have an account. They also need to acknowledge having read all of the governance document, they need to attest to have completed their training as well. And if they are from a different institution, they'll need to also provide proof of IRB approval from their institution. And then, again, submit. So everybody who is working on a project need to have verified their training and their approval and having read all of the governance documentation. Once the request is submitted, it's submitted to the DAC, who can then review, access, or reject the submission. So that's kind of quickly what I wanted to illustrate there. I know that next we are going to show you a demonstration of what that request looks like and what the registration looks like, but that's really very briefly what are the different steps.
Thanks, Christine. And I know there may be questions. I think we'll wait till the end of the governance section of this presentation before taking questions. So let's go ahead and move forward with Dave Eichmann, who's going to give us a demo of the onboarding mechanism.
So this is just an initial landing page for doing a login. The main authentication mechanism is actually UNA, which is an NCATS tool. Clicking here takes you to their landing page. The prospect here is we've got 3 different populations. We've got NIH personnel that have to go through their chain. We've got the Income Federation group in the middle, and then people who are not federated will need to go in through login.gov. This includes both citizen scientists and individuals who are at institutions that are not part of InCommon. From here, this is basically just pick a site. University of Iowa was already popping up because I've been in through here before. Use institutional credentials to get logged in. Oops, and it helps if I type my password correctly. You get bounced around a bit and you finally land on this page. You'll notice that you cannot change your email because this is your institutional credentials as far as UNA is concerned and as far as the Foundry Access is concerned. First name, last name, institution are all filled in. You do have the ability to override this if you want to specify a different informal first name. If that's all you're going to do, this basically just registers you within the environment. For purposes of today, the primary point of the exercise is checking off access to the enclave. We're going to give you an opportunity to specify therapeutic areas and expertise. ORCID IDs are required, and we are doing lookups here. You can type it in manually if you want, or if you're in the list, you can just basically check it off. Hitting submit then places the registration in there, and you see that we've overridden the first name value, ORCID ID is plugged in. At this point, this data is going to be harvested by the Palantir folks, and they will create the account. If you're an InCommon federated organization, that's going to be fairly automatic. The login.gov folks at institutions that are known with the DUA will basically fall into that same sort of block approval process. The individual citizen scientists will have to be hand vetted by the NCATS and the Palantir folks. Anytime you want to come in and modify things, you can actually come back in. So for instance, I can come back in and check off that I want to participate in this and plug in, say, a GitHub ID. And we'll submit again. You can re-enter, so now we've got a GitHub ID. You can re-enter this as often as you like to modify and extend information. And all of this will be periodically refreshed into the foundation environment. That's pretty much it. At that point, you will have an account on the platform, but you haven't been authorized to do anything quite yet. And that's where the DUR stuff picks up.
Great, thanks, Dave. And I want to add a number of people have been requesting access to the enclave, and we've asked you all to be patient as we get this part completed, because this is the mechanism by which you'll be making requests to access and onboarding. So once we roll this out, then you'll be able to register and join the enclave. Okay, so with that, we're now going to move to Miriam, who's going to give us a demo of the data use request.
Thank you, Justin. So I'm going to share my screen. Do you see my screen?
Yep.
Okay, so after the registration is completed on Dave's form, you will be able to access platform, and you will have access to the DUR form. So there are two options for the form. Either you can create a project. If you are primary PI on the project, you can create a new project, or you can request to be added as a collaborator to the existing project. I'm going to show you both forms. So I'm going to start with create a new project. As you see, my name and accessing institution is pulled based into the pre-filled in the form based on the information that is entered in Dave's form. So I can come here and I can enter my new project. This is a required field. And I have option, either as a primary PI, either I can allow other researchers to join my project, or do not allow other researchers to join my project. If I select allow other researchers to join my project, automatically this project will be displayed in the second form, which is which I'm going to show you later. So required field, and if you notice in the beginning of the form, we have a note that project title as well as non-confidential research statement will be public information. So I'm gonna add test here, and next section is primary PI on the project will add collaborators who will be working with the PI on the project. So I'm going to add Ken Gersing, and I have two options. So as you see, either I can select that Ken Gersing works belongs to the same institutions that I do, which means that Ken is covered under the same DUA I am covered. Or I have another option. If Ken is a collaborator from a different institution, I can put the institution name here, and I'll show you why do we need this later. That means that Ken, if he's from a different institution, he needs to his institution needs to sign DUA in order for Ken to access the system. And as you see, you have option to add up to 200 collaborators, but I'm not gonna go through this and add 200 collaborators here. So as soon as first two sections are filled out, I can select what type of data request I want. We have three options: limited data set, de-identified data, and synthetic data. Each level requires different set of documents to be submitted. I'm gonna start with most simple, which is synthetic data set. One thing I need to highlight is if me as a primary PI select synthetic data set, that means that all collaborators on my project will have the same data access. So as for synthetic data, all I need to do is I need to read DUA, and I need to attest that I agree to terms and conditions in DUA. As soon as I attest, the system will auto-populate attestation completed for the DUA field. I have to make sure that I need to attest that I've completed information security and management training, as well that I need to attest that I need to read and attest that I'm agreeing to follow N3C code of conduct. The same thing happens as soon as I attest, the system will auto-populate the attestation completed field. For the synthetic data, and since this is a new project, it requires to add project plan. And as soon as all required fields are completed, my submit button will get enabled. Any questions on the synthetic data? Okay. One last thing I want to show you, and this confirmation page will be displayed for every new project submission. Primary PI will have ability to send the email to collaborators, and email will be pre-filled with collaborators' name as well as with a link where collaborators can go and they can fill out the form and be added to the same DUR. So what and I'm gonna just pretend log in with Ken's link and show you what he will see. And since I'm logged in, as my name is pre-populated, but Ken, do you want me to send you the link, and do you want to log in?
Miriam, I can do it either way. But can you walk through it without me? Or?
Yeah, I think
Okay.
this will be faster. So if Ken was logged in from with his credentials, the system would pre-populate his name, email address, and institution, as well as he will have in read-only format the project title, research statement, and what level of the data set was requested by primary PI on the project. So all Ken needs to do here is he needs to attest that he read DUA. Since it is synthetic data, he needs to make sure that he confirms that he took security training, as well as that he agrees to follow N3C code of conduct. Any questions? Okay, I'm gonna move to, I'm gonna show you what set of documents are required for the identified data. So I'm gonna do demo 2. And I'm gonna select the identified data, which is level 2. So for the identified data, I need to confirm that I read and I agree to follow the terms in the DUA. I need to confirm security training, as well as I need to confirm that within past 3 years, I've taken my human subject research training, and I need to put the date when the training was completed. And code of conduct, it works exactly the same for every set of data request. Okay, I missed something. Oh, sorry. Okay.
Miriam, I just want to say one thing. So Miriam's just quickly typing on the research project on these, but that's the paragraph that the Data Access Committee will use to understand what level you're requesting, but if that level is appropriate. So we'll keep talking about that more and more as this gets closer to launch, but that's the Data Access Committee needs the information to justify the minimal and necessary required level. So for instance, just if you said I need LDS, but there's no reason that you needed true dates or true zips, the DAC committee would say, of the paragraph you've described, we don't see why you need it. We either need clarification or we're just going to give you the de-identified. So I just want to keep, I'll keep pounding that point in. Sorry, Mariam, go ahead.
Absolutely. So as Ken mentioned, everything, DAC will make decisions based on information entered in the project plan field. And the highest level of the data that can be requested, we know it is LDS. And I will show you what type of document, what is a different, what additional is required for LDS. So if I select LDS, I need to, of course, attest to DUA that I read it. I need to confirm that information security training was completed, as well as human subject training was completed. I need to agree to follow code of conduct of N3C. I need to put risk project plan, which, as Ken said, is a very important section because this is what DAC will be making decisions on. And I need to put detailed plan. And since I'm requesting a limited data set, I need to make sure that I upload PDF of the my institution determination letter. Any questions here? So there is another. So if my collaborators on the project are from the same institution than I am, they will not have to upload IRB determination letter in their forms. But if collaborator is from the different institution than the primary PI, then those collaborators will have to have IRB approval determination letters uploaded to their forms. So can I move? Do we have any questions about creating project?
Mary, there's a number of questions, but maybe we should just, I think we should get through the whole governance section, and then we can address all these questions together.
Sure, absolutely.
Thanks.
And there is another option to request for scientists to request to be added as a collaborator to the existing project. So in this case, they will have the list of already registered projects that have allowed collaborators to join, check marks that I showed you, radio button checked in the new form. So the system, based on the selected project, the system will pre-fill all the information: project title, non-confidential statement, as well as what tier access that project has. But what I need to do if I'm requesting to be added to the existing project as a collaborator, I need to go based on the level of access that the project have. I have to go through multiple fields that I need to attest to the same things. But there is one additional thing, that this form won't be submitted and won't be sent to DAC for approval. Before DAC approves or reviews this request, the email will be sent to the primary PI on the project for their approval that they're okay for the collaborator to be added to their project. And only after PI's approval, the email, the form will be sent for the DAC's approval.
Okay, thanks, Miriam. Is that everything you wanted to cover?
I think so.
Okay, so let's move to the last portion, which is the Data Access Committee, and then we'll move to questions. So Ken, I'll share my screen and then you can walk us through that.
Okay, and I'm going to try to be really quick. So we really haven't, oops, there we go. Thank you, Justin. We really haven't talked much about the Data Access Committee. So I just want to remind people, this is the third time you've heard this information in 3 different slides today, but when you're getting ready to put in a data use request, and remember, just a reminder, the data use request is for a specific study. The data use agreement is an institutional agreement that the institution signs, but the data use request is underneath or a subset of that data use DUA. Okay, so once an investigator has registered with N3C, your institution has signed the DUA, you've taken your human subjects training and your security training, then you submit the DUR, which Miriam just showed you. And then I put a big red circle about the Data Access Committee and who are these folks before you can do research. So let's go to the next slide. So basically, once the DUR has been submitted, and these screens are all drafts, so this isn't done, so you please don't hold me to this. A project will show up in the dashboard of the DAC, and the DAC is made up of feds. Basically, they're in Catsian people, and this was unfortunate. This is a requirement as us as stewards that the feds occupy the DAC, and the DAC will basically read the data use request, and the top row is basically the the details, the title, and the ID. But in the middle, and just to get this on one slide, I just wrote the description, which is what Miriam just went over. The DAC will see the title and the non-confidential description, and the research project plan, and that's what I just mentioned a second ago, and Miriam also mentioned. This is really the main paragraph that the DAC is using to determine the minimal necessary data to use. So basically, the DAC will then accept or request clarifications or deny it. There are very, very few situations where the DAC's job is not to judge your research, it is to protect the integrity of the data. So I just can't say that enough. It's just the minimum necessary data to do your work. We want everybody to have access. So they will have a quick, some sort of groups of radio buttons. They'll put in a paragraph, and that will get sent back to you. So next slide, please. So, I guess that, let's go back, I'm sorry. So anyway, if you, just one other thing about the DAC, if both the DAC that's reviewed for de-identified and LDS takes 2 people, where synthetic is just 1 person. If one of the people says, I'd like clarification, and the other person says denied or accept, a letter of clarification will be sent that won't be denied. So the clarification basically trumps. The only situation where, and then if 2 people, one said accept, one said denied, the DAC will convene and come up with a decision. So generally speaking, you will get an accept or a request clarification. If you get a clarification, you resubmit your paragraph. It goes back into the queue to the same people and the same process. So it'll be hopefully very quick, and again, low burden for the community and for the DAC. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Ken. So so now let's go ahead and return to some questions, although I know, Ken, you others have been answering in real time here. So maybe we actually covered many. Let's take a look. So I think you covered the point that several people had inquired about with respect to who signs the DUA, right? That's just it's signed once by your institution, and that covers all projects for individuals who are part of your institution. So I'm not sure we need anything more on that.
Hey, Justin, there are more in the Q&A.
Yeah. So, here's a question, perhaps maybe some nuance on that. Which department will sign the DUA? I think if we're talking about the institution, then it's not perhaps the department, but maybe someone else has insight in terms of who to best route a DUA to in an institution.
Well, we just explored this, and the same person who signed the DTA signed the DUA. We went to our head of the health system and our chief lawyer, and then it goes to our research foundation, and then our department fills out a bunch of details. That seems to be the situation, at least for us. It may change. I'm sure it varies.
Yeah, I think, I'm not sure there's a one size fit all here. Every institution will have to figure out themselves.
We had no clue. So our institutional lawyer looked at it, the head of our health system looked at it, and that seems to be the way it's going.
Okay. Here's a question. Will NCATS be able to send institutions report of usage from their site? Ken, you want to take that?
I don't see why not. The projects are under a single data use agreement, DUA. I keep saying the same thing. So all the DURs, there are many DURs to one DUA, like we keep saying. So I don't see why we can't have a report. Is there a person who'd want it, and what would they want? Counts, number of projects, who's using it. I'm sure we can accommodate that. We have that information. So as long as it's, there's no security problems with it, I know we can report that.
And I think this is related to Justin Starnes' question about whether hubs will be notified on data use requests, and would they have perhaps the ability to review and deny access requests from their investigators.
Let me see if I'm answering this question. Is the question from Justin Starren, will NCATS be asking each institution for each DUR for each investigator whether it's okay? And the answer is no. So you as an institution, you as an individual have registered at N3C. You as an institution have approved the data use agreement, and your institution monitors your approved users through your InCommons. We use InCommons to allow you to log in, so we know you're an employee of good standing with that institution, or else you wouldn't be able to get in there. And at that point, you're considered ready to go. If there was ever a situation where an institution didn't want somebody, I'm sure that, technically that can be done. That is not technical an issue, but we are not sending a verification on every single time somebody uses the system. We're trying to keep the bar low.
And I'll read Justin's further comment. So if the institution is responsible for the behavior of their investigators, they would want to know what's going on, which I think speaks to your earlier reply of, the ability to send reports to the institution in terms of the projects and data use requests. I think that would satisfy that that desire by the institution to be able to monitor.
Right, Ken. So this is Nita. I think we talked about providing sites a report of each of those individuals from their institutions who submitted a DUR, so they can monitor that for themselves.
Yeah, and Anita, remember the title, the investigator, and the description of the project are actually public. So we absolutely can send them a list of those because we did want people to know what other folks are doing so they can collaborate if they want.
Right.
A couple other questions in the Q&A.
So this is from Feifan Liu. Does each member in the research group of the primary P have to sign the DUA? So no, again, it's only signed once by the institution. So the PI does not sign, the graduate students don't sign, it's the institutional signee who signs the DUA once, and that's all that's required.
And another one just came in. Is DAC designed to consider a research topic of the project and consider potential overlaps in other projects when approving DUR?
The DAC is purposely set up to protect the data, not to judge the scientific merit of the projects. However, one of the reasons we're making the title and the description, not the third paragraph, that describes the process, just the first two paragraphs of text of the title and the description, public, is so people can see what others are doing and actually apply to join that group. But we are not restricting, the DAC's job is not a scientific oversight. We really trying to keep this as open science as possible, and very consciously made the decision that that's not part of their job.
And we will be making tools within the platform to help matchmake and people find projects that may be similar. So there may be duplicates or very similar projects, and we will not prohibit that, but we will provide facilities for people to find each other and perhaps collaborate as needed. Okay, can you sign one DUA for a network organization of multiple institutions? For example, the Midas Coordination Center at University of Pittsburgh.
This may be Wilbert's asking this question, so the data, if I understand your question, the DUA will be signed you won't have to sign it but once for the entire, University of Pittsburgh period. So hopefully you won't need to do that. It should cover Midas within. Now, if an organization has people who are not part of Pitt, those people who are at other institutions, their institutions also have to sign the data use agreement. So just to be concrete, Texas and Pitt have two people who want to work together who are part of Midas. Both Texas will have to sign it. The investigator from Texas cannot be under the Pitt DUA. They have to be under the Texas DUA.
Okay, so Pfeiffer, thanks for your clarification on your earlier question. You meant the data user agreement. So I guess to restate your question, does each member of your lab need to sign the data use request or process that form? And yes, so so as Miriam showed, the PI creates the initial data use request and and invites all the investigators, whether they're within their institution or external to their institution. So even if they're within their institution, i.e. within their own lab, they still have to be invited. They still have to be provisioned an account for the data enclave. But if they're already part of the same DUA, so that part is already covered.
And Justin, just to clarify, the reason that is needed still is because that individual investigator, even though they're the same institution, are attesting to having read the DUA, having agreed to the code of conduct, having attested to taking the training. And that's why they have to go in as an individual, because they're also responsible for that.
Okay. Justin's a prolific question. That's great. Is the DCA also a data, I guess you mean the DAC, the Data Access Committee, also authorizing anyone at the institution, or I guess I'm not answering your question. I don't know, Ken, if you can see the question here.
So you're talking about the CDA? Is that what you're talking about, Justin? Versus the DCA?
No, I think it is referring to the
DAC.
The DAC.
Okay. The CDA?
Oh, CDA. Okay. CDA is just a limited thing for operations. That's going to go away, and the DUA is going to replace the CDA.
Right, Justin. To kind of further explain, so the CDA is anyone at your, it's anybody at your institution, but we're managing limited users, so we know who those people are who should have access, And so the governance team is managing that process. So if you have someone at your institution who needs to have access to the operations piece of the system, then we're managing that closely. So not just anyone can get access. It has to be people who are approved by the N3C team as well as the institution.
Good. I just wanted to be able to tell my vice dean of research that so he doesn't get paranoid.
Okay.
And Justin, just one more thing. Sorry for so much information. There actually will be, once the DUAs replace the CDAs, there will be special data use requests which are operational only. And basically there'll be a very small set of people whose job is to curate the data who will be members of those projects, just those small projects.
Well, that's interesting. No, I didn't know that. Okay, so then the new approach would be for operational people to have operational projects, and then it would go through the data use or go through the.
It doesn't go through the DAC. It doesn't have to go through the DAC, Joel. It's actually kind of special. It's really a special subset of a data use that's really just operational. So it'll actually just be a project under NCATS.
Okay.
Because
Okay, well, great. This has been a fantastic discussion. We obviously are out of time and will not be moving with the other topics. I want to thank the governance team and NCATS for this presentation. Just to give a quick preview of what we'll discuss next week, then we'll give a demo of the new homepage that's been developed. So when you land into the enclave, how you can orient yourself and find resources and data. And we'll also be talking about some of the very hard work that's been happening in the background to prepare and harmonize the data and how we're going about that. So stay tuned for next week. In the meantime, thank you everyone, and stay safe and healthy.
Real quick, do we have an ETA on the DUA?
the ETA on the DUA is ASAP. No, it was finished last week. We've already sent it out to a few folks, and for the soft launch, and then in the next few days, we'll be sending it out to all the groups who signed a DTA, and we'll also have it on the website, so to download it. So you'll be able to get it out pretty soon.
Thanks.
Thanks, Justin.